Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our special guest, Christine Hansen. We've got a great conversation in store for you. We're going to be talking about strategies to work less and earn more. And let me tell you, who couldn't use that? I'm going to tell you a little bit about Christine here. And pardon me if I read some of my notes. Christine is an award-winning business coach and consultant running a boutique service for online entrepreneurs, creatives, and coaches who want to embrace their inner lazy, profit like a pro, and add philanthropist to their list of credentials without ever undercharging or feeling like they have to be anyone but themselves again. She combines smart strategy and deep soul work so that you can grow and scale a business you love. Having built 2 successful online businesses herself, Christine found out the hard way that most entrepreneurs are closer to burnout than they are to reaching 6 figures. And hallelujah to that. Christine is famous for sharing cautionary tales from the trenches, tell it like it is tips, her all-time go-to no-brainer tech tools she uses to get twice as much done in half the time. I'm really excited to hear about that, Christine. And gushing her best secrets to help you bust past your blind spots and be true to yourself and break through to 6 figures in under a year, all while donating to charity, taking vacations every 6 weeks, and spoiling yourself with something nice on a regular basis. Well, Christine, this sounds absolutely amazing. I can't wait to get started. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I have to say, I do like my bio. I'm in all transparency, it's my copywriter who wrote it, but every time it's being read, I'm like, yes, yes.
Well, it's brilliant, and I love what you're doing. So, and for everybody who's joining us here for the very first time, take this moment right now to subscribe to Claim Your Career Crown wherever you get your podcast, and that way you won't miss a single episode of amazing shows like today. And if you do love what we're doing and love our show, please leave us a 5-star review. We would very much appreciate it. Okay, Christine, let's get right into this. And I think that because we alluded to it in your bio, let's talk a little bit about your background, how you became a business coach, and how you arrived at this unique approach.
Yeah, so as with many entrepreneurs, it was not straightforward. I'm from a very traditional, non-entrepreneurial family, very academically driven, and that was what I did. I went to the UK to study English literature, did my bachelor's and my master's degree, and I came back and worked in academics. Wasn't what quite fulfilled me. I had my daughter. And I stumbled upon what I now know is a very good persuasive sales page. At the time, I Googled for baby sleep to help my newborn sleep straight away. And I enrolled into what I now know is an email list. And after a while, I received an email where they were talking about looking for sleep consultants. They were certifying sleep consultants, baby sleep consultants. And I went to that website. And I have to laugh because I don't think it has changed very much since. And that was nearly 10 years ago. So, and it was very much how you can build your own life on your own terms. They had pre-calculations on how much you could earn if you had that many clients, etc. And I had no idea that such a thing exists. And I think I need to explain that in Luxembourgish. So I'm from Luxembourg. We have our own language. And entrepreneur does not mean what it means in English. An entrepreneur is someone who does building projects like malls or football stadiums or multiple buildings, big like
Okay, a
contract.
developer.
Yes, a developer, exactly. So I honestly didn't, sometimes you have this theory that when you don't have a word for it, it's very difficult to know what it is. And that was it for me. So when I read all of this, I realized, oh my God, I can shape my life in this way. And I knew it was the missing piece. So I started a baby sleep consulting service because in Europe, it's not very well known at all. In Luxembourg, there isn't one. Now that I've stopped, there isn't one at all anymore. And I knew this is a
Oh,
niche. This is great. I love the marketing. I love it all. And I started Sleep Like a Baby. But it turns out I don't like babies apart from my own. So, but I love the business aspect. So I switched from Sleep Like a Baby to Sleep Like a Boss, which is the first or my second online business that I really, really grew. I loved it. And yet again, I realized I prefer building the business than necessarily working with the sleep clients that I have. So I changed again and I hired a team, franchised out a team who took over clients, and I just did the marketing bit. Decided that I wanted to completely focus on business consulting and coaching, which is what I really love in the online aspect. And this year, I transmitted the whole thing to one of my team members, to Annika Carroll. She's the new CEO of Sleep Like a Boss, and I'm really, really only focusing on Christine Means Business. So it wasn't quite straightforward, but I think once I knew what I wanted, I have been like, yes, a dog with a bone. Like this is what I know is to be true for me.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And what a great story. And I think that one of the things that you're doing now, which is wrapped around burnout, certainly here in the States where we live in this, workaholic world,
Mm.
it's become, and also with what we've been going through, um, and women, constantly just taking on more and more and trying to do it all, it's
How
becoming more
true.
and more common. So why do you think and this is, of course, a universal question wherever you are in the world, why do we have this tendency to get so burned out?
I think it has a lot to do with conditioning and programming and just things that we lost throughout history. Historically speaking, it was never just the woman's job to do it all. It was a tribe. We had men and women working together. It was very much 50-50. And then it all changed, came a very patriarchal society, and it wasn't fair for the longest time. And we're slowly starting to get back into equality, right? Which is not easy to do because obviously, let's be honest, men have a lot of advantages that they're not going to be too happy on giving up either. So we'll see how all of this is going to develop, but there's more awareness to it. However, we still live in that typical scheme of, when you're a woman, you have to be a caring person, a humble person. Ideally, if you have a family, you will have to do most of it. Now with the pandemic, homeschooling, I don't see too many dads staying at home. Most of the time, it's the mother. A lot of women like to do it too, or they think they like to do it. It's a huge distinction. And I have wonderful conversation about this because I'm a mother, but my daughter, I'm divorced now, she lives with her dad most of the time. And it's not because I have a criminal record or anything. It's just literally because I'm not the motherist person. He is completely, but you wouldn't believe how many times I get the question, so how do you deal with it? And I was like, if I was a man, nobody would even ask me that
Yeah.
question twice. And I think that says a lot about our society, about how we still think, even if we're aware that we don't like it. Um, and I think that contributes a lot to the pressures because it's like, wow, look, women, we've opened up those avenues for you. You can do whatever you want, but please don't stop doing everything else that, you've been doing for so long. So I think it's partly outside pressure and our own pressure as well. And changing that, getting rid of those layers, it takes a lot of work, a lot of courage, and a lot of strength. And that is what I teach or what I help my clients discover. A lot of the time, it's not just strategy. It's literally, look, you are a wonderful person. You deserve everything. You're not just enough. You're way more than enough. What it does enough even mean? That means I'm barely qualified. It's like, no, no, no. There's so much more for you in store. Um, and I think that's when I teach them that we connect it with the pricing, valuing their own services really. And that's when you then, in a smart way, first of all, crave time or create time to rest and be lazy, but also to not feel guilty about it. So you have the strategy, but you also have the mindset of not feeling or being shaming yourself about being lazy. It's like, it's actually not being lazy most of the time. It's the way that you work, the way that you tick, the way that you replenish. It's just that we have that notion. So
Yeah.
all of these things, there's just a lot to say about it.
No, no, I agree absolutely. And there's a part of you that really has to step into that your own power and that gumption to,
Mhm.
create also equal partnerships. And also, like with my husband, he definitely did half of things. So though okay, so I probably still did 65%. But he changed absolutely more diapers than I ever did. He gave we also had a daughter, our daughter more baths. He was the one who did the homework things. They always did special activities together. Um, and and it definitely was, my husband passed, and it was, that was sort of one of those things that all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, he did all these things. So I do things with my daughter. I always did as well, but I had to fill that gap then being, the single parent. And that's been one of the, it's always been hard, but um, I think that when we set those expectations up front, like I'm not going to be some kind of superwoman and do it all.
Yes,
This is going to
exactly.
be an equal partnership, and this is how we're going to divide the tasks.
I agree.
And then drawing the line and making sure that you don't, there's always exceptions, but in general, that it's not suddenly keeps sliding so that you end up
Mhm.
taking on more and more and more. And that also includes women saying no with grace and
Yes,
drawing those limits and putting those in place. So I think we
absolutely.
could talk about that for a long time, but I
Yes.
want to get into this other part of why should we work less? Because there is that point of when you take a day and you just sort of relax and maybe you binge watch something on Netflix, and then you feel like, oh my gosh, I could have been doing all these things. I should have been doing this. Um, how does, that element of self-care, of replenishment, how would that benefit our personal lives versus our professional lives?
Yeah, I think it's part self-care. I think it has more to do with self-love and self-grace, actually, as you said. Because self-care is, to me, it always sounds a little bit like yes, you need to take care of yourself, but it's kind of this obligation. Whereas it shouldn't be this massive thing. It should be very natural because it's your body speaking to you. It's your mind telling you, I need a break. There is a reason for those things, so many reasons. You can go into a physical plane where it's literally your adrenal glands are burning on full throttle, your body is starting to break down, it needs a rest. If you go into the psychological, it means that your brain can finally process everything that's been happening. Even if you're binging Netflix, your brain is still processing. If you're sleeping, even better. If you're dreaming, even if you don't remember, your brain is processing. And what it means is that you are much stronger in your mental health game. It means you're more patient, you're more creative, you are smarter. There's so many reasons. And I think when we understand that it's a good thing versus the lazy or versus the I don't know. If you don't hustle, you can't make money. If it's not painful, you will never break even. All of that old kind of really outdated uh, verbatim and belief that we grew up with, it becomes a new normal. And I find you know inherently when you need to take a break. It's just that we've been taught for so long how to ignore that and how to stretch our further, and that it has been rewarded for the longest time to stretch ourselves further. The less you sleep, the more you work, the more present you are. Not meaning that you're present mentally, but physically.
Yeah.
That has been rewarded for the longest time. And it's crap. It's just literally, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't help anyone. And so it was just a way to pressure people, really. But once I think you understand to see through that and actually that no, I know that if I take a day off or even two or even three, an idea hits me with so much energy and joy and motivation that I get tons done in a day that then can really help me to either increase my revenue in business or just to be a better person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm really liking where we're going with this. So, just as a question, how can we get that started? How can we work less while we're also earning more money or enough money?
I think the first thing is always to look at your pricing. The way that I see it is there's two reasons why people don't have pricing that allows them a quote unquote lazy lifestyle. And I don't think it's lazy, actually. I always make fun of it, but you know what I mean. The first reason is that they don't know how much money they need to make. So it means that they are avoiding looking at their bank account very often because it's not very pleasant to look at. So they literally don't know how much they need to make in a year, which means that they don't know how much they need to make in a month. So they don't have a baseline, because once you have that, you know that your minimum income needs to be that baseline per month, and ideally plus 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 for all the luxuries that we deserve. So I find that is the first one. The second reason is that they don't value themselves or their service or skill enough. The way that I explain it is that you don't sell minutes. You sell what your brain processes and produces within a minute. That means anyone can get every information for free in Google or in a public library, to be honest. Like what they exchange is time. When
Right.
they work with you, you collapse time for them. And time is the only thing that we can't literally take and buy, but we can in some way when we work with someone who can collapse that process. So that's what you do, because you have all that knowledge in your brain. You can distill it, you can apply it to their specific case. That's what they pay you for. So very often having an intake of what you've learned, how much you actually bring to the table, and calculating a little bit how much time you collapse or how much money you save someone, that is when the click goes. And then the third reason is really the shame of money. Money is evil, money is greedy. If I have too much money, I don't feel good. And that's where the philanthropy part comes in. Because I find when people have a philanthropic goal, it is so much easier for them to suddenly see their worth and be
Yeah.
driven to actually make money. And that could be a scholarship for your programs. It could be, for me, I have my profits every quarter, half of my profits go to an animal charity because I don't like humans too much. Animals I adore. They are so cute and they are innocent. That's where I want to go and help, whatever it is that rocks their boat. I find that if they have that, it takes part of their shame away, even though we still have to work on that because money is not evil, just what you do with it. Then we change things, and that's when you get your time back, because you don't exchange the minute just for a cent. You change the whole quantum volume and you can put more money on it, which means that you should have at least one VIP kind of package that pays all your bills. So one client a month and you're good. That's doable. It is completely doable. And when you do that, it means that you can have your regular content, your regular work, and then you can decide, do I show up now or don't I? Do I launch something extra now or don't I? That's when it gets fun. That's when the hustle goes out and when you feel when the time to shine is. So I don't do well. It's my personal design. We're all different in that. In human design, I'm a generator. So I'm very much on complete energy drive when I'm motivated and when I feel like it. Not very good with linear planning. I can't make myself be motivated for something. It has to be organic, which means that I don't plan very much. I literally jump from energy burst to energy burst. But when I, for example, plan too long on a launch with a certain expectations, it usually is a complete fail. I just launched my book and we had just the very basics. And for the rest, I was like, I'm actually excited. I love this project. And I went overboard. Like I posted 5 times a day, but I enjoyed it. It wouldn't have worked if I had forced myself to do it. And I knew it's a 5-day stretch and it worked really, really well. So I find making sure that you have enough time to rest when you know I'm not in flow, that is only possible if you have structure and strategy in place and if you have pricing that gives you the time to do that as well.
Right, right. And that's absolutely a very important part of understanding your for your business, your pricing model and also the the time and energy it takes to fulfill and to give your clients the results that they need. So beyond charging more as a key solution, one of the big things that you've talked about is how you can create a lot, compress that time by using the right tools. And what are some of those other solutions that people should try?
I'm a huge fan of outsourcing, not too late, rather too early than too late. So some tools, and I'm going to try to narrow it down to three, and it's also a little bit of strategy. But the first thing is we are so blessed to live in a time where we can record pretty much everything, our screens very easily. I use something that's called loom.com, but you could use Zoom. You can use anything that records your screen. So as you are figuring out what your processes are, I always recommend to record it. And then when you outsource it, when you start to get your team, and you can get freelancers really, really cheaply, you literally just show them the videos so they are self-trained basically by doing what you do. Which means in the end, you can do the original content, which could be a video, which could be a podcast, and that's it. You send it off, you have your little minions, quote unquote, doing all the rest, scheduling it out, and that's it. So your job is to be inspired. Your job is to know what your audience craves. Your job is not to do graphics. It's not uploading onto YouTube, all of those things. That's not your job. Your job is to get money to pay someone, of course, but that is not what your zone of genius is, unless that is your job, of being a VA or something like that. The second thing is that I love software that helps me. I have a CRM, or a client relationship management platform, that takes care of my contracts, my invoices, my appointments. I use, well, if you're a health coach, I can recommend Your Coach, which is like, has all your programs in one place, everything. If you're creative, I love Dubsado, for example. And just today, I worked with someone and I was like, can you send me the contract and the invoice? So it was a Google Doc. You have to sign that. So I was on my phone. So I had to find a picture of my signature, and it was just such a hassle. And I was like, no, it's so much easier if you have a software where it's all done electronically. It's easy for you, it's easy for your client. So that is a huge, like, these streamlining processes are worth learning. They are maybe a little bit challenging at the beginning, but once you have it all set up, it's like a private secretary, but you pay like a fraction of what that would be in a brick and mortar business, for example. So it's
Yeah.
definitely that outsourcing, the streamlining of tools, recording everything, outsourcing it, and then having the streamlining tools that I find make such a difference.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, we use a different tool other than Loom, but I find it so useful to record as well. And one of the things that the platform we use for years, it's provided you automatically an AI transcript, and
Yes,
I can go back and look at that transcript and use it. And we also, I mean, I'm on a couple of boards, and we actually use that to create our minutes for the board meeting. We
exactly.
both, so it's like nobody's writing, and the only thing we're doing is like taking notes for action items and things like that. But everything is recorded, and it produces the AI transcript. And if for any reason you need to know exactly what someone said,
You
okay,
can
well, it was
listen.
at 39.2, and you go to the video and fast forward to 39, and
Exactly.
then you watch it, right? And
Exactly.
I find that can be very useful when you also are having different types of meetings, because you can go back and you can look and say, okay, now what did they say?
Yes,
And because that was really fascinating. And I've done that on some of the podcast interviews, like the one today. I'm going like, well, that was really, I've got to go back and listen to that again.
exactly.
And I use my transcript to go, okay, where do I go to? Because I can skim that really quickly.
Exactly. I
And
use something called otter.ai, which is
yeah.
through AI as well. And for example, just silly, but in Europe, or at least in Luxembourg, TikTok, for example, doesn't, and Instagram too, doesn't have the automatic captions yet. And it's super annoying because technically I would have to go in and type in everything I've just said in my video. So I use the transcript software while I record my video, and then I can go back and I copy paste. It's still annoying. It still takes me much longer than if they'd enabled it. But as it is what it is, it's just showing that you can have so many different uses for these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a common one. There's a lot of different services
Yeah.
out there, and they are really very useful. In fact, even if I'm watching something that I really like, I'll just turn on my screen recording, and especially if I felt it was of such value, I'll turn on my screen recording, walk away, and I come back, and then I got it's done, and I pulled it. I want the transcript is what I want.
Exactly. Yes,
It's like,
I
what
do
did,
that.
rather than trying to frantically take notes. Well, I've done that before. And it's like, okay, well, and to your point, that's where you're compressing that and you're providing that service. So someone isn't spending these hours and hours to get that moment of brilliance and so that they can apply it to their own business. So I love what we're talking about. So, for those of who are just ready to get started, what are the first steps that they should take to work less while also earning enough money to make ends meet?
First step is probably this unsexiest and scariest one, but it's during a financial intake. We are recording this at the beginning of a new year. It doesn't really matter when, but it's a great idea to go back to your bank statements, write everything down, look what you're spending monthly and yearly, your subscriptions. Take the total of a year and divide it by 12. It will give you a baseline. It will make you also, I see that so often that even if you do have a partner, you really want to do this exercise on how you yourself can keep yourself afloat. And I see it so often that it is this little click to take your business seriously. When you state your pricing next time, I have these bills to pay. This is what I need to make a month. So if someone says it's too expensive, and it's like, that's fair enough. But this isn't a hobby. I need to make an income. I've spent a lot to get my education, my skill. This is it. This is my job. So I find that is always the first exercise that I have people do.
Yeah. No, I think that's really a great idea. And it also, to your point, that really then grounds you into the why, and gives you, I think it can give you a lot more confidence and assurance when, someone may say, well, that's just like really expensive. And I think that a lot of times when they're saying that, you haven't represented the value that you're delivering as well. And
Mhm.
that's something that there's all kinds of things around objections, right, for sales. So that's
Yeah.
another topic altogether. Well, Christine, thank you so much for sharing how we can get more bang for our buck when it comes to how much we work. I know that our listeners are going to want to know more about you and where they can find out more about you.
The easiest is to find me in my digital home, which is christinemeansbusiness.com.
All right. And we will be sure to include that link down below in our posts, along with all of Christine's additional contact information. So, I am so thrilled, Christine. This has been such a fabulous discussion. And for those of you who tuned in, thank you so much. And if you have ideas you'd like to share, you can leave us a comment down below. We do love hearing from you. And of course, if you have a question or would like to suggest a topic for discussion, you can email us at jointheconversation@petitequeen.com. And to stay current on all of our insightful advice, our breakthrough advantages, and incredible episodes like the one with Christine today, you can sign up for our weekly Wisdoms newsletter. Thank you so much for listening. And Christine, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It was an absolute joy.